Hey everyone, before we do anything else today, before the intro, before the topic, before any of it, I want to ask you something directly.
Just stop for a second, wherever you are right now, whatever you're doing.
Are you okay?
Not fine, not managing, not getting through it.
Actually okay?
Because if you're listening to an episode called If You Feel Lost in Life, listen to this. Maybe you're not. And that's exactly why we made it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the English Connect podcast. I'm Sophia.
And I'm Jason.
And today we are not doing the usual thing. Today we are having the conversation that most people are having inside their heads, but almost nobody is saying out loud.
The conversation that starts with, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm on the right path. I don't know who I am anymore outside of my routine, my roles, my responsibilities.
The conversation that starts with, I wake up and I do the things and I go to sleep. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being sure why.
How are you doing, Sophia? And I mean it today more than I usually do.
Honestly, Jason, I've been thinking about this episode for a long time because I've been lost. Not recently, but I have been. And I don't think I've ever talked about it fully on this show.
Then today is the day.
Today is the day. And Jason, before we go anywhere, how are you? What's been on your mind this week?
This week, I ran into someone I went to school with, someone I always thought had everything figured out. Great career, great life, always looked so certain of everything. And we got talking, and after about 5 minutes, he said something that I haven't been able to stop thinking about.
What did he say?
He said, honestly, I've been feeling like I'm living someone else's life. Like I made all the right choices and ended up somewhere I don't recognize.
Living someone else's life.
And I wanted to tell him, you're not the only one. Because I think that feeling, that specific disorientation of having done everything right and still feeling lost, is one of the most common and most unspoken human experiences there is.
And yet, when we feel it, we feel alone in it. Like everyone else has a map, and we lost ours somewhere along the way.
So today's episode is the map. Or at least it's the beginning of one.
We are not going to tell you to follow your passion. We are not going to give you a 5-step plan to find your purpose. We are going to have the honest, human conversation about what feeling lost actually means, what it's trying to tell you, and how real people, not perfect people, not exceptional people, find their way back.
And we're going to break down some powerful English vocabulary along the way.
But most importantly, we want you to feel less alone by the time this is over, because you are not alone, not even close.
If someone sent you this episode, they love you, and they wanted you to hear this today.
And if you found it yourself, something in you was looking for this. Trust that.
Let's begin.
Jason, let's name it honestly. What does feeling lost actually feel like? Because I think people sometimes can't even articulate it clearly. They just know something is wrong.
It's such a strange feeling, because it's not always dramatic. It doesn't always arrive with a crisis. Sometimes it's just a quiet, persistent sense of wrongness. Like something doesn't fit quite right, but you can't locate exactly what.
Like wearing a shoe on the wrong foot. Technically you can walk, but something is off with every single step.
Yes, and you keep moving, because that's what you do. You keep showing up, you keep functioning. But underneath the functioning is this question that won't go away. Is this it? Is this really what my life is supposed to feel like?
And the cruel thing about that question is that asking it can feel ungrateful. Like, I have a job, I have people who love me, I have enough to eat. Who am I to feel lost?
We compare our inner experience to other people's outer circumstances and conclude we have no right to our own confusion.
But the feeling doesn't care about your logical argument. It just keeps showing up. In the quiet moments, in the car, in the shower, at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep.
At 2 a.m. when you can't sleep, that's the one that gets me. Because it's in those moments of stillness, when the noise of the day falls away, that the real questions surface, and they are not gentle questions.
What kind of questions?
Am I wasting my life?
Did I choose wrong? Is it too late to change? Will I always feel this way? What do I actually want?
And that last one, what do I actually want, might be the most important and the most terrifying question a person can ask themselves.
Because for so many of us, for so long, the answer has been shaped by everyone else. What our parents wanted, what our culture rewarded, what looked impressive, what felt safe, what we thought we should want.
And somewhere in the middle of building the life we thought we were supposed to want, we lost track of the life we actually wanted.
Or maybe we never knew what we actually wanted in the first place, because we never had the space to find out.
I want to talk about my own experience of being lost, because I think it's important to be specific. Vague talk about being lost can feel distant, but specifics land.
Please, tell me.
So there was a period, I was in my late 20s, where from the outside, my life looked genuinely good. I had built something, I was achieving things, people respected what I was doing. And I woke up one day and felt nothing about any of it. Not unhappy exactly, not depressed exactly, just hollow.
Hollow.
Like the thing I had filled my days with had no nutritional value. I was busy all the time and nourished by none of it. And the most frightening part was that I didn't know what I would want instead. I had spent so long optimizing for the thing I thought I wanted that I had completely lost contact with the part of me that knew what I genuinely needed.
You had optimized yourself away from yourself.
That's exactly what happened. I had been so focused on performing the right life that I had forgotten how to live my actual one.
And what did you do?
For a while, nothing. I stayed busy, because busy kept the questions quiet, but they kept getting louder. And eventually, I did something that felt very small at the time, but turned out to be everything.
What was it?
I started paying attention to what made me feel alive. Not what was impressive, not what was productive, not what anyone else would understand or validate. Just what made me feel like I was actually present in my own life.
Can you give an example of what that looked like?
I noticed that when I was writing, not for any purpose, not for an audience, just writing, time disappeared. I noticed that when I was in a real conversation, the kind where someone tells you the truth and you tell them the truth back, I felt more awake than at any other moment. I noticed that being in nature, even briefly, did something to my nervous system that nothing else did.
Small things. Quiet signals.
The quietest signals. But they were pointing at something, and I had been so loud and so busy that I had never heard them before.
This is one of the most important things you've said, and I want to stay here for a moment, because I think one of the most common pieces of advice given to people who feel lost is find your passion, follow your passion, discover your purpose. And it's not wrong exactly, but it puts so much pressure on a single dramatic revelation that most people end up more anxious than when they started.
Because passion doesn't usually arrive as a lightning bolt. It arrives as a quiet, persistent signal that you have to be still enough to hear.
And most of us are never still enough to hear it.
We are chronically, structurally, deliberately busy, because if we were still, the questions would come, and the questions are uncomfortable.
So we fill every gap, every commute, every meal, every spare minute with noise, with content, with anything that keeps the quiet away.
And in doing so, we keep away the very thing that might actually help us find direction.
The stillness is not the enemy. The stillness is the compass.
And learning to sit in it, even briefly, even uncomfortably, is one of the most courageous and most necessary things a lost person can do.
Okay, I want to ask you something directly, because I think there's a specific kind of feeling lost that we haven't named yet. And it's the kind that comes not from never having a direction, but from losing one you used to have.
Tell me what you mean.
Some people feel lost because they never figured out what they wanted, but some people feel lost because they knew exactly what they wanted, and then life happened. A relationship ended, a career collapsed, a health crisis changed everything, a dream they worked for didn't work out, and now they're standing in the rubble of the life they had planned, and they have no idea who they are without it.
The identity loss. that's a different and in some ways deeper kind of lost.
Because it's not just directional, it's existential. When you lose the thing that defined you, the relationship, the job, the goal, the identity, you don't just lose a path, you lose the sense of self that was walking it.
And nobody prepares you for that. We are prepared for failure as an event. We are not prepared for the identity vacuum that follows.
I went through something like this when I was passed over for that promotion I mentioned in a previous episode. And I know in the grand scheme of things, it sounds manageable, but at the time it shook something fundamental in me, because I had tied so much of my sense of self-worth to being seen as capable, as advancing, as someone who was going somewhere.
And when that was taken away, even temporarily,
I didn't know who I was without it. I had been performing person on the way up for so long that when the performance was interrupted, I discovered I didn't have a clear sense of what was underneath.
and what was underneath?
That took time to find, and it was uncomfortable time, genuinely uncomfortable. But what I found, and this surprised me, was that underneath the performance was someone who actually cared about things that had nothing to do with the promotion. Someone who cared about connection, about learning, about doing work that felt meaningful in the moment, not just impressive in retrospect.
And those things were always there.
Always there. The lostness was a crack in the performance, and the light that came through the crack showed me what had been hidden behind it.
Rumi wrote something that I think about often. The wound is the place where the light enters you. And I used to think that was beautiful, but a little abstract. But the more I've lived, the more I think it's one of the most practically accurate things ever said.
Because the wound, the loss, the failure, the crisis, the confusion, it forces open something that was sealed shut. And through the opening, something gets in. Some truth that could never have reached you while everything was intact and comfortable and working.
Feeling lost is the wound. And if you stay with it, if you don't seal it back up with busyness or distraction or performance, the light can get in.
What does that light look like in practice? Because I think people need to know what to actually look for.
It looks like the thing you keep coming back to even when there's no reward for it. The thing you would do if nobody was watching and nobody was impressed. The thing that makes you lose track of time. The conversation that makes you feel most like yourself.
The signal underneath the noise.
And here's what I want everyone who feels lost to hear clearly. You do not need to have it figured out. You do not need a clear vision and a 5-year plan and a sense of certainty before you start moving.
In fact, certainty before movement is a myth. Clarity is almost never the thing that comes first. Action comes first, and clarity follows.
You take a small step toward the thing that feels alive, and that step gives you information. And you take another step, using that information. And slowly, not in a straight line, not on a schedule, but slowly, the path begins to appear.
You don't find the path and then walk it. You walk, and the walking reveals the path.
That reframe is everything for someone who is lost. Because if you believe you have to find the path before you can move, you will stand still indefinitely. But if you understand that movement itself is what creates the path, then you can begin, right now, even lost, even unsure, even scared.
Even with no idea where you're going.
Even with no idea where you're going. Because you don't need to see the whole road. You just need to see the next step.
And you can always see the next step.
Always. Even at the worst point. Even in the darkest fog. There is always one small step you can take. One honest conversation you could have. One thing you could try. One question you could ask yourself. One morning you could spend differently.
And I want to say something to anyone who is listening right now and thinking, but what if I take steps and they lead nowhere? What if I try things and none of them work?
Then you have information you didn't have before. Real, lived, irreplaceable information about what doesn't light you up. And that information narrows the search. Every wrong direction crossed off is progress toward the right one.
Edison didn't fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways that didn't work, and each one pointed him closer.
You are not wasting your time when you try something and discover it isn't right. You are doing the work of finding yourself, and there is no shortcut to that work.
There is only the living of it.
The imperfect, uncertain, sometimes terrifying, sometimes quietly beautiful living of it.
And one more thing, something I want to say to anyone who has been lost for a long time and is starting to believe that lost is just who they are.
Please say it.
You are not lost because you are broken. You are not lost because something is fundamentally wrong with you. You are lost because you are a full human being with a genuine inner life, and that inner life has been asking for your attention. The lostness is not a verdict. It is an invitation.
An invitation to come home to yourself.
And home is not a destination you arrive at once and stay forever. It's something you return to, again and again, sometimes daily, sometimes by the hour.
And each time you return, a little more honestly, a little more quietly, a little more willingly, you find more of yourself waiting there.
More than you thought was left.
More than you thought was left. And that is not nothing. That is everything.
Thank you for this conversation, Sophia.
Thank you for being honest today, Jason. I think a lot of people needed both of us to be honest today.